Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra,
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people.
associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked.
and sometimes what didn't,
You will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts.
And inspire you to do even greater things.
Nalini Krishnan is someone I've known for about a decade now through the platform of the Grace Hopper celebration for women in technology. She's been a strong champion for women in tech and has taken on several different roles in her career of over 2 decades in IT. We started this conversation with a retrospective, and it stayed around the areas of personal learning challenges and growth, and managing technical debt and bringing one's authentic self when dealing with customer relationships. The conversation also had to include Nalini's message for women looking to take up IT as a career. So, listen on. Hi, Nalini. I've been waiting and looking forward to this conversation with you. A very warm welcome to the Software People Stories. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Chitra. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure interacting with you, and I'm very thrilled today. And like I said earlier, I'm feeling like a celebrity. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
We hope to make celebrities of all our guests, which I believe they are in their own right. So, Nalini, how would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Okay, let me try this. I'm rediscovering myself every day thanks to COVID. So this will be like a brand new introduction that I'm doing for you guys. I'd like to call myself, of course, a software professional in the industry for over 20 years. But right now, I'm also feeling a bit like a confused child, right? With the whole pandemic and the way my life's turned over in the last couple of months, I am trying to step out of stereotypes. So trying to blend in the heart and the head, which I think were very two different personalities within me. So I'm trying to merge the split personalities that I have professionally and personally. Professionally, like I said, IT professional with about 20 years of experience, done a wide variety of things at my work, from starting from Microsoft certified developer to moving to ERP space, retail, moving to quality assurance, and that now heading competency management for a practice within the organization I work for. It's been a roller coaster ride, and I'm quite an extrovert at work and completely introvert personally. At home, I like to be left to myself, maybe reading, pondering. I have a whole world within my head, which I kind of overthink and overanalyze. Few things that I'm very passionate about, of course, is women in technology, women in leadership, and I think that's where Chitra, you and me met. Yeah, that's a bit of my introduction.
Taking off from there, how did your journey of this very multifaceted career begin? Why did you choose to do software? How did you get into this whole industry?
The choice of software, Chitra, was really not a choice. If I were to be honest with myself, I actually started off with the ambition of becoming a doctor, a cardiologist specifically. That's been my dream career in school, and I mean, with all my interest in biology and stuff like that. I think engineering was more of my parents' dream, and as luck would have it, with all the ranking and the options I had way back in a small town in Hubli, from where I come from, it was not much of a choice. But yeah, I took it up. I did well. I graduated, and I was, I think, one of the few people, the first 6 people who got campus recruited through my college way back in engineering. In that 6, I was the only girl. Was quite thrilled to get a job before I graduated, and the posting was in Pune. And my parents actually very reluctantly agreed to send me, because that was the condition I had put back then. I wanted to do my medicine and medical, and I didn't get it in my hometown. And the whole thing was that once I graduate, I want to go outside of my hometown and work for a few years and, see the whole world out there. So engineering kind of became my gateway through which I lived that dream. Once I started my first job, right? So that's when I actually got a hang of technology. I was quite clueless about the power of technology when I actually did my engineering, because I was still figuring out how to put all this theory into practice. I think when I joined my first job in Pune and I learned technologies and I kind of learned how that weaved into the whole business, then it became a very fascinating world. And then I think my entire technology journey has actually been about constantly upskilling myself and trying out new areas where I tend to see such challenges. I think I have a pattern across my career in terms of finding areas with a few challenges, getting into that and kind of streamlining them, and then again moving out. So that's how I would like to describe my technology journey, Chitra.
There's a whole bunch of challenges out there and a lot of questions coming to my mind. So if you were to do a mini retrospective of your challenging moments, what were some of those and what were some of your key takeaways from those?
I think in retrospect, everything feels, simple, and the pieces of the puzzle all fall together, right? So it's easy to do that, but it's also fun because a couple of things I think I would have are big learnings, which I would probably try and do differently. One is, I think, again, technology. We tend to, I think, hold ourselves back with respect to the hunger and the thirst we have about learning. We tend to limit ourselves to certain comfort zones, saying, this is the trend, let me just learn this much and I can kind of continue in this role or in this technology for the next 3 years, 5 years. I have been quite ambitious and putting myself outside my comfort zone, but looking back, I think I could have done a little bit more, been a little bit more curious and hungry perhaps, and taken a little bit more risks, which would have worked out. The other thing I think is the whole office dynamics, right? I'm not using the word politics because that probably has a bit of a negative connotation. Navigating through your career, building your network, and just working with different kinds of people, working with your biases, their biases, not taking things personally. It's been an amazing learning. I think I'm more comfortable with that now than I was earlier. And the reason I probably grew a little slowly in that aspect is, again, because of my own stereotypes and biases and the pressure to kind of fit in. I think now I'm wiser, where I care less apologetic, and that's kind of helping me with a lot of interpersonal relations, whether it's personal or professional. So I think these two areas, interestingly, in retrospect, I think a lot of learnings.
Very nicely put, Nalini. In fact, I want to take you back a little more in your timeline to a point where, you talked about holding ourselves back, probably not being as curious as we can be, and also the tendency to follow a trend. While building solutions or developing software, what did you notice yourself doing, and what would you now tell yourself if you were to be developing those same solutions?
The easy and the typical thing that we tend to do, Chitra, is again come with a baggage of how it has been done in the past or how others are doing it. So I still see that trend. When we are building solutions, we try to oversimplify the problem. We try to get single tracked on what we are trying to solve and a very logical way to solve it. And by doing that, I feel that we leave out a lot of nuances which are very critical for a solution to not just solve the immediate problem, but to be relevant from a longer term perspective. So I think now what I try to do differently is again take a step back and question the problem itself, right? Because I think problems also come camouflaged and disguised as things that probably are not relevant, or we are targeting the wrong thing. So it's essential, I think, to look at it from a value and a longer term relevance perspective. if I were to talk in terms of technology and building a technological solution, I think we need to be very cognizant of how this will span out for the user, who our end user is today, and will that change tomorrow, and what is the value this problem solving is adding for that user, right? Because what I've seen in most of the design meetings in earlier projects and currently also is sometimes the problem itself is non-existent if you approach the end-to-end user story or the user cycle. The problem itself is an outcome of something that was designed badly. And what you're actually doing by solving the problem technologically is adding to the technical debt. So I think taking a step back is very important, and asking, figuring out the bigger picture because before you're fixing a specific problem is very important in technology, especially today, because the way technology is changing, things are getting relevant and irrelevant by the day. And things that sustain are really very basic things that you're building a solution for. So simple things which are sustainable, which will still have meaning, and still things that don't have to be built from scratch tomorrow are things that we need to keep in mind while designing or building anything, is what I feel.
That's a very interesting perspective, Nalini. Thanks. Maybe due to the rate of change of technology and some of the mindset that we do bring to work, there is always this growing tech debt. Have you done something around this to see how tech debt can be potentially addressed or managed? I'm not saying that it needs to be drastically reduced. Are there things that you've done to manage it better?
See, I think one clear indicator of a technical debt is when you try and do a comparison of the technology you are on with respect to similar technologies out there in the market. And if you can come up with a migration plan of 6 to 8 weeks, I would say you don't have much technical debt. In case you feel that this is going to be a 5-year migration, then I think that's a clear indication that you've complicated the processes, you've complicated the technical landscape, you're not using the right software for the right purpose, you're not optimally using your infrastructure, processes, everything. So I think every now and then, again, in the software industry, it's no longer a choice. You've got to put self-learning and upgrading your skill out on your calendar as a weekly activity, if not daily. And you've got to see what else is out there, because from an enterprise software perspective, Chitra, I've kind of seen or been through the journey of seeing systems built from scratch in a C or a Fortran or a Unix, and then now we have systems that are practically called no-code software, right? So you have platforms and platforms where you can build apps, platforms where you can build web services, leverage what is already there and just integrate and fit in your business flow. So I think every now and then compare the processes, the technology footprint, as well as the time it takes for your business to actually translate a particular workflow into revenue. These three things will give you a clear indicator of how much of technical debt you have. And I think some very hard decisions need to be made if you figure out that you have huge technical debt, because there's only so much that you can complicate the technology landscape. I think earlier what used to be the CIO's job is now kind of getting redundant, because these problems are business problems touching not just the business user, but also the customer, right? So it's moving beyond just the IT department and into each and every stakeholder of a particular business and a system. So I think that's where the question is. Look at your landscape, see if you can really migrate to something more efficient, more user-friendly. And if the answer is, I need to build a 5-year roadmap to make this migration, then I think you're in deep trouble.
Nice tips there, Nalini. Thanks. I certainly have a takeaway from that three-dimensional tech strategy that you just referred to. That is a lot of stuff to look at. Maybe we should have a few more conversations around this sometime in the future. There's a whole lot going on here, and someone as experienced as you can certainly share a lot more with a lot of developers. Looking at your career path, you have moved into roles where it's required a lot of managing upward, outward, breadth, and depth. Part of this, I feel, is also client management or customer management. What have been some of your strategies or your learnings when you have approached customers?
Yeah, I think it's been simple for me, Chitra. I would just call out two factors that contribute in my mind towards good relationship with customers. One is to remember that you have to really take your genuine, authentic self to them, because that is what relationships are all about. I mean, business transactions, projects come and go, and there are so many other external factors that govern those decisions, both for you and the organization you represent, as well as the customer and the organization that they are in. But I think when you say customer relationship and management, the beauty of it is that it goes beyond those organizational constraints, those formal designations and titles. So if you approach somebody as with a bit of a curiosity to understand what they are doing and how you can add value, I think a lot of the unnecessary noise and clutter is out of the way, and you can get directly into some meaningful conversations and try to figure things out. So it gets very creative very fast, where both of you are brainstorming and trying to do something new and trying to solve the problem in hand, rather than being very formal and being very judgmental. Secondly, I think whether it's a customer or your boss or your super boss or anyone in the company, everybody is trying to be successful. Everybody is trying to do their best to take only calculated risks, because that's the whole intent with which they come in. So if you can, again, keep your interactions very candid, transparent, be very professional about what is the value that you bring, the equity that you bring in the whole team dynamics, and also call out what you're not there to do, right? Because there are insecurities, there are past failures and successes that we all kind of carry as a burden. So sometimes it's as important to call out what you're not there to do as it is to call out what you're trying to help them with. For me, this has worked well because, like I mentioned in the past, the whole office dynamics, office politics, hierarchy, and I've worked with different kinds of people, a few of them who had very different personalities. And I think one of the best advice that I got from one of my previous bosses was to not take things very personally, although it's easy for us to do that. So he used to keep on telling me that, look, these are the people you need to work with. You need not necessarily like them or build lifelong friendships. So I think bringing that genuinity to the table in terms of, as a team, what are we here to achieve, and keeping everything else out definitely helps in building those relationships. Of course, it sounds very simple, but we do have our own battles with everyone, because I think it's really difficult to kind of keep the heart and the head very well balanced in situations. But I think it's a journey you learn with each experience.
Thanks for those tips, Nalini. The customer relationship is a bit of a tricky thing, but I suppose once you get the hang of it, and I like the fact that you said bring your authentic self to any relationship or engagement. And I believe that's something that has worked for a lot of us, but it's easier said than done. So you mentioned early on in the conversation that you are an extrovert at work and you have your own little world once you come back home. How does that play out for you at work and home? And when did you realize that you had these two personas?
It happened very gradually. It's not like I kind of figured it out or had an aha moment, but through your career journey, I think you tend to see people, you tend to have role models, you tend to reflect on what you want to do and what is your next career move going to be and where do you see yourself so many years down the line. And that's when you start to observe patterns, personalities, and start admiring people for probably things that you want to be doing, but you can't figure out why or how you're not doing them. And you also try to play on your strengths. So you kind of feel that you're good at a few things and you bring that out more often. So I think for me, it was more of I don't remember who, but I've received this feedback from others quite a bit, right? So when I'm reflecting, when I'm with myself, there's a complete different kind of experience that people get. When I'm at work, in large gatherings, or when I talk in town halls or large gatherings, I think there's a different side of me that comes out. So I've received this feedback both from people I know professionally and people at home. And that's when it started occurring to me that I probably have different comfort zones when I'm at work and when I'm at home. And I think it's a good thing because I kind of get to experience the best of both worlds. That's how I look at it. At work, I'm very curious. I like to meet new people, talk to them, find out what they are into, and try to learn something every day. At home or personally, if you ask me to talk to somebody or something, I dread that, right? I like to be a part of the crowd, but I'll be the silent one, just observing and nodding and not really mingling. Feedback definitely helps. I think it's very important. And like I said, the heart and the head balance is something that I'm still learning because I think that's what differentiates us, how much we open up, how much of a confidence we choose to display when we are with others.
Certainly, and I think it's what gives each one of us our super colorful personas. And in some sense, I felt that's what brought so many of us together at the Women in Technology platform and the GHCI conference. Maybe some of the reasons why all of us have actually worked well together. Where did that journey begin? Your engagement with GHCI, what has kept you with it, and what is a message for young women in tech that you'd like to share?
Yeah, this is a very experience that's very close to my heart, Chitra. So although it's been a decade now, I guess the first time I got to know about GHCI was because one of my colleagues was on the planning committee, and I think she was chairing one of the tracks, and she happened to be a very outspoken and well-known person at office. So again, I think there is a certain pull when you see people who are dynamic, who are leading, and somewhere you want to be like them. So I got introduced to the platform, and the first time I was an attendee. So I think I got one of the free passes from my then organization to attend the 3-day conference. And it was quite a mind-blowing experience, to come be a part of such a big conference with so many flavors of technology, leadership, management, emerging tech, posters, students, and everything. And I think all of us are kind of looking for the next role model, if you will. So I was quite thrilled to see that quite a few leaders, women leaders, were there, and I think it was the feeling that I'm not in there alone, because until then, strangely, I was still not very comfortable being a woman in tech, and I was somewhere trying to fit in. So everything from my thinking to my dressing to the way I conducted myself was, I don't know if it's right to put it that way, but I was kind of trying to be a man. And I think that conference had a huge impact on me because I saw people embracing their true selves. I just saw that this could be so much different and we don't have to fit into stereotypes. So it left a huge impact on me. And the second year onwards, I started volunteering to be on the planning committee. And then the rest is history, because I've been on the planning committee, I've chaired tracks, I've been on the advisory, I've been a speaker on a couple of years during the conference. And why it's still close to my heart, I think, is as women, I think we still have our own internal battles of fitting into stereotypes or going after this perfection that we think that the entire world expects from us, right? So it's very recently that, Chitra, even I have had experiences where I'm comfortable with my vulnerability. I'm comfortable bringing that out in front of people, and I'm comfortable not judging myself or not being judged by others. I think these are small things, but they make a huge difference in lives of people. We still need more role models. I wouldn't say women or men or whatever, but we still need role models who show us that it's possible, who show us that you can perfectly carve your own beautiful definition of success and happiness and whatever it is that you want to represent. It just contributes to all the positive energy in the world. So again, from a more COVID perspective, I think I'm doing a lot of internalization of my life, others' lives, of what's happening around in the world. End of the day, I think it all boils down to how much of a positive energy do you create around yourself. That's what spreads out in the world. And it all boils down to very small things. You give what you are full of, and you have to have that courage to go out there and grab things that make you happy, because that's what you reflect onto others. And as women and as caretakers and caregivers and the strengths that we have, we cannot afford to be negative. We cannot afford to not optimally use our strengths. So I think GHC for me represents all of this. I think that's my only way I think I like giving back to the society, is to kind of try and inspire someone else out there to bring their best out.
Thanks, Nalini. So beautifully put. I'm sure a lot of women out there will be inspired by this platform, as you and I have been and will continue to be. So, what is it that you would tell people who are considering careers in technology, IT, or in software, based on your experiences or even otherwise?
I think the earlier version of me, Chitra, would give a lot of gyan around, what to do, what not to do, and do your research and find out and figure out and whatever. But I think I don't know. Now I think we analyze and we overthink too much. My advice would be, if you're attracted to something, if something is catching your attention, just go try it out. I mean, don't hold yourself back. Don't overanalyze. Don't think. Just jump into it. All of us need to kind of jump off the cliff and, develop, grow wings on the way. And it's fun to do that. So take the whole seriousness and the stress off of it. If you're inclined to something, just try it out. A good strategy, I would say, would be to just think through what's the best that can happen and what's the worst that can happen. The best that can happen should excite you. And if the worst that can happen is not, you or somebody dying, then I think it's just worth the failure also. I would say just go for it.
That's a nice way of looking at it, Nalini. Good one. Thank you so much. So I've really loved the way this conversation has gone. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me again, Chitra. It's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Malavika for promoting the Software People stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.